Plus, Sakazuki killed Ace, so he deserves to be banned forever. I really do like the promo version of Sakazuki because I never see it, and I never want to see Sakazuki ever again. Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's OPTCG here, and before we begin, I just want to apologize for my voice. I lost it like a week or so ago. Just been pretty sick, actually. A week and a half ago, I had this like cough that wouldn't go away, and so luckily I'm like much better. The cough's gone, but my voice still hasn't recovered yet from all the coughing, and so I haven't been streaming as much, and I haven't been making some videos, just letting my voice recover. But man, we have a lot to talk about, especially with the announcement of the ban list coming through, or I guess the updated restrictions and bans that'll be announced at Worlds. And so super excited for that. We still are a month away. I think it's going to be releasing on March 16th, I believe. And so these are just kind of my own thoughts going into that, and my own predictions. And so again, I could be wrong. These are just my thoughts. Would love to hear your thoughts too about what cards need to get hit and why you think it has to get hit and stuff, and if anything could get unrestricted as well. But let's go ahead and talk about it. So let's review what's currently banned, right? And so leader-wise, we have Trafalgar Law. This is the red-purple law 4-life leader who activate main once per turn. You can don -3, return one of your opponent's characters with the power of 3,000 or less to the bottom of their deck, and then play a 4-cost character from your hand. And so this guy was banned because with the release of Black Maria, he not only was able to keep up in Dawn, but just was a menace at controlling the board while developing and just getting so much aggro. And so we also have Sakazuki, who we all remember, Sakazuki, the Reigning Terror, starting in, set 5. And so, man, yeah, he had to activate main once per turn. You just discard 1 card from your hand and draw a card. So he has a free filter, and then when attacking, you get to give one of your opponent's characters a cost of -1. And so he was a 4-life leader, being one of the best color combinations of blue and black. And we have Ennis Lobby, which was a stage specifically for CP leaders. When you rest a stage, if your leader has a CP type in it, you can give up to one of your opponent's characters cost -2. And then it had a trigger that allows you to play that card. And so a very good and consistent reduction engine for CP leaders like Lucci. And then we had Moby Dick, which was another stage. And on your turn, if you have 1 or less life cards and you're Edward Newgate and all of your characters with all types, including Wipe Your Pirates, gain 2,000 power. So once that Whitebeard hit that 1 life threshold, everything on the board got this huge power buff. And again, it had a trigger that says play this card. And so that was a menace, especially back when you're able to search it. We never got to see the full power of this because in the West it got banned before the release of the EZO Searcher, but I'm sure that was like maddening to try to beat a Whitebeard with the Moby Dick stage. Then we had a Great Eruption. This card is kind of interesting to see. I remember when it was first announced, I was like, oh, it's interesting, but it makes so much sense. It was a 1-cost event. You get to draw a card, which basically it already recycled itself, and then you get to give one of your opponent's characters -2 cost during this turn. And so it was a 1-cost replace, basically draw further into your deck, and while giving cost reduction. And it has a trigger that says your opponent trashes 1 card from their hand. So it's just a really high value black card. Coming out, I mean, this was from the starter deck actually when Black first came out, and it actually wasn't played that much when it did first come out, but I think the more and more support we got for Black, the more this card became just a no-brainer to include because it had just so much value, right? And so anytime you're drawing into your deck, anytime you're replacing a card in your hand that's already value, but then when you get to do another effect that wants to do what Black wants to do, it's really good. We had the Reject ban, which was a 4-cost event. Activate main. You can either choose one of the following: KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or lower, or if your opponent has 1 life, deal 1 damage to them, and then add the top card of your life to your hand. And so just for 4 Dawn, you get to just force a life, right? And so really, really strong card. And then the last but not least was Kabaji. This was what made Nami Turbo Gas deck that could mill herself so quickly. It was a 2-cost 3k power character with a 1k counter, but more importantly, the effect is what really made it broken, which is on play. If you have Moji in play, draw 2 cards and trash 1 from your hand. So you're netting, you're adding a card to your hand, basically draw 2 because you're trashing only 1. And then you're able to keep bouncing this Kabaji and replaying it and replaying it and replaying it, which allowed Nami to mill so quickly without any interaction from the opponent. And so that had to get banned. And so question of the day is, do I think any of these bans will get lifted? There's been a lot of talk about like Sakazuki. There's been a lot of talk about Moby Dick. So do I think any of these bans will get lifted? I think hell no, dude. I don't think any of these bans are going to get lifted. Nor should they get lifted, I don't think. I think these were actually really well-targeted, good bans because let's look at the leaders, for example. The main effects on these leaders were just so versatile. For example, Law, activate main once per turn, Dawn -3, return to one of your opponent's characters with a power of 3,000 or less at the bottom of the deck. Then play a 4-cost character or lower from your hand. And so, in terms of game design, right, like, red already has so much cost reduction, and purple already has cards that re-ramp your Dawn. And so, the more support just gets released for other leaders, as long as it's not leader locked, it kind of really limits the design space, right, for good red and good purple cards, where any now 4-cost red or purple card is considered for Law, right? And being able to bottom deck a 3,000 power character card, you get to kind of do what red wants to do, right, with the power reduction and cheat out a 4-cost. And so I think it's hard to keep a leader like this in the game and keep the game healthy because it really just does limit what good 4-cost cards you can print, right? And so that's kind of going to be a theme at how I approach and think about what I think would be banned in the future as well. But yeah, effects like this were just a little bit too generically strong where it's really hard to balance around. So yeah, like again, we saw it happen with just one card being printed, Black Maria, right? That just made this deck way overtuned and made it like 80% of the top 8 decks. And so again, having to keep this leader in mind while releasing new cards and new support, constantly thinking about the impacts of this leader, it's just very hard to keep producing, I guess, progressing the game state, right? When you always have to worry about that. And so I do think that Law will continue to be banned. And in the same vein, I think Sakazuki will also just continue to be banned. His leader effect is just so good, right? It's just you're basically milling through your deck, getting rid of dead cards in your hands, and it's when attacking you get to just -1 cost from the character from the board. So he's doing what blue and black both want to do. And he's just generically too strong, I think. And so I really don't think Sakazuki will be unbanned. I think that's pretty cope if you think he will be unbanned. Plus, Sakazuki killed Ace, so he deserves to be banned forever. I really do like the promo version of Sakazuki because I never see it, and I never want to see Sakazuki ever again. Mostly because he killed Ace, but also because he's kind of busted. And so, yeah, guys, this leader's cope. This leader's cope. He's not going to get banned. He's going to stay in the void. Let's just hope. That's my hope. Hope that it never surfaces again. Let's keep this guy just putting donuts in whatever void he's in, right? And so, and this lobby, I don't think it's going to be unbanned. I think this card will still just be an issue. Lucci's still performing quite well, even four sets later. And so, yeah, I think this card will remain banned. Moby Dick, that's interesting too. And I don't think they're going to unban any cards. I think that's like kind of like my overall prediction. But if there was one card that would get unbanned, maybe it's Moby Dick, right? Because Whitebeard has been like a non-issue. And there's so many, I guess, there's ways in which we can start to defend from some of the aggression and some of the high power. But we didn't have a lot of the toolkits that we have currently that, they didn't exist in the time where Moby Dick Whitebeard was prevalent. And so maybe, but I highly doubt it. I still think this card's just kind of crazy, right? I mean, this is just me, like, giving your whole board plus 2,000 power. It just seems a little wild, but who knows? This could be the one that I think is not going to get unbanned. But yeah, these three definitely, I think they're going to remain bans. Let's not live in a world where Reject is back, guys. Please. And Great Eruption is just 2 value. It's just 2 value. I think it's just a little bit overtuned, a little bit too consistent, and it kind of like slightly breaks a lot of black decks. And so I think these are really good bans, especially looking back into it now. I think these are really well targeted bans, and so I don't think anything's going to get lifted, guys. That's my conclusion. Going on, what do I think will be banned? First in the chopping block, I really think ACOS Morios is going to get banned this time, guys. And I know it's kind of weird for me to say that because we haven't really seen it be super prevalent, right? With the introduction of Blackbeard, with like Lucci kind of not being as represented anymore, but I still do think that this card will get hit because of the same kind of concept as you look at Sakazuki or Red Purple Law. With his effect on play, choose up to one character with a cost of 4 or less, and play up to one card with a cost of 2 or less from your trash. You play one card and then play the other card rested. And so, one active, one rested, just 2 cards out of your trash. I think it's really hard to start developing and releasing more and more black support without considering Gecko Moria. And you could argue that the on-play clause, and with Blackbeard being a thing, it'll keep this in check. But again, having one deck keeping this in check, I think, is not very good game design, right? And because, like, what if you don't want to play Blackbeard, right? And what if, like, I don't know. So I do think that this card needs to get hit for the overall health of the game, right? For 8 Dawn, you shouldn't be able to cheat out, like, 20-something Dawn worth of value. And so I think this card will, again, just keep making game design a little bit tougher and tougher each set, because this is going to be more options which you can generically play from your trash. So I do think that this will be one that at least gets hit or restricted. I really just think it's going to get a full ban. I don't think there's going to be restrictions done, because I think Bandai's probably going to start moving away from restrictions the way that they've been kind of doing it, shifting their approach after the set 4 meta. And so, next, so if I were to choose a blue card that has to get hit, I'd rather see this Law get hit over Jinbei. I think Jinbei is, like, really value being able to play another 4 cost, but I think being able to... the flexibility of this card is what really makes Doflamingo busted. On play, you may return 1 character to the owner's hands if your leader has a 7 Warlords of the C type. Return 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand. And so this card single-handedly prevents other aggro decks from existing in the meta right now, right? This is what makes it so Zoro can't be feasible into Dofi. This is what... and hitting a 4 cost or less just hits... like, it's just so much value, because most of the time you're cheating this out with Jinbei or using leader ability to get this out, right? So you're not even paying 4 Dawn for it, really. you're getting kind of the 8 Dan worth of value for 4 Dan, or maybe even 3 Dan if you're cheating out the Jinbei with leader ability into playing this Law from hand. But not only that, you get to return one of your own characters, which means you're cycling your Sengokus, your Peronas, things that you want back in your hand to either counter out with or use later, and bouncing back something that your opponent established. And so it's just so cracked. It's like feels like the most unfair card in my opinion. I think it has to get hit. I would love to see it get hit or restricted, either or. But even if you can restrict it, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like that would make for a poor game experience too, right? Because then, like, if one Dofi player sees this and it doesn't, like, they just win, right? And so, but yeah, even the fact that you're able to bounce back 2 of your own characters too just makes this even, like, more value too. And so I do think that this card is a little bit too overtuned. Yeah, so, but I think it's going to get banned. The next card I do think, and this may be controversial, I know purple just recently started to get good again, and so, but I do think this card is really, like, slightly overvalued in a way Rad Beam felt when we were in the 02 to 04 meta, right? Or actually even 01 to 04 meta, right? Where for 1 Dan you are essentially getting 4k power, which is like a Rad Beam, but not only that, you're John minusing 2, but by the time you're using this card, like same with Rad Beam, right? You're already gonna be late game where the 2 Dan really just doesn't matter that much, right? Because you're just gonna re-ramp back up to 10 for most decks. And then so I think the timing of the card is like, yeah, these type of cards are typically used for the late game. And so the cost is really inconsequential. And then 2, you are not only clearing your hands, right? Because you're replenishing your hands, right? So you trash a dead card from your hand, you trash this card, and then you draw 2 new ones. And so really, really strong value. Really, it feels like one of the most potent counter events that they've released in a very, very, very long time. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see this get hit. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they're just like, let it roll, you know? But I do think with the performance of Green Purple Luffy in Japan too, they may consider looking at this a little bit more deeply too. And so, yeah, I think that's that. And then lastly, I think if Moria doesn't get hit, maybe Rebecca, and this is probably like what I least believe in. Like, if this is my prediction, it's like I'm like a 15% maybe that Rebecca gets hit, but I doubt they're gonna hit Rebecca and not Moria, because Rebecca is gonna have a lot of legs in set 10 with like Usopp and like some of the other support that we're gonna have in set 10, and so I do think that the combination of Moria and Rebecca is what's really busted. But I do think Moria, in tiers of like what's broken, I think Moria is the most broken. Rebecca is the second culprit, right? And so I think hitting Rebecca would also nerf Moria quite a bit. But it wouldn't solve the Moria problem overall, where like Moria is just too generically good, where every single black 4-cost card that they print, they're going to be like, what can be comboed out with Moria, right? In the same way, though, too, like this Rebecca being able to combo out a blocker, or herself being a blocker and being able to get back a 3 to 7 cost character and play out a 3-cost character, release from your hand rested. It's not as broken, but it still is like, ooh, that's a lot of value, right? And so you're able to kind of like get removal and establish a blocker, right? And so, yeah. The combination of Moria and Rebecca, though, is what's really busted, because you are developing board, you're usually removing something on board, and you're developing a blocker, and you're potentially probably getting a card from, you know, you could be drawing more cards if you're playing out like brand new Sengokus, things like that, right? And so it's just overall too much value. But again, yeah, I in terms of like how much do I think this is going to get hit, I think If Moria gets hit, this definitely gets left alone. If Moria doesn't get hit, maybe they do something about Rebecca. Maybe not, but who knows. But that's it. I think that's like the last slide that I have. And so let me know what you guys think. This is just my initial thoughts. What I think is kind of an issue in the card game and what would kind of make the game a little bit healthier overall. But super excited for set 10. I'm going to be releasing some set 10 videos soon. I've been playing a lot of Red Green Smoker. And you know that I've been on Blackbeard for a while too. And he gets like this nice power buff in set 10. And so really excited for that. I do also plan on trying out some more Usopp as well. He's really fun. And I do want to try out Rebecca as well. And so I have a lot of videos in the store. We're going to be going over deck lists. We're going to be going over play lines. We're going to be going over generic matchups just to see and show you guys how those decks can run. And so hopefully you guys get to try it out. But yeah, probably will start with Red Green Smoker. But please comment, like, subscribe, do everything. It really helps the channel. I think that's about it. So Attica TCG out.